All right, everyone, so I wanted to show you how to utilize the insurance tracker, which is an Excel document that you can use to track your client's insurance on a weekly basis to know how many units you have remaining for that client, and also keep track of what insurance providers they have and when those authorization periods are. So I'm just going to go through some examples of how you might use this tracker and problem solve some issues along the way. So the first thing you want to do on your insurance tracker is put your name. The next sections are specific to each client that you have in your caseload. So I'm just going to make up some fake numbers here for a client. And this is going to just be John Smith is their name. And I find that it's easiest to make it last name, first name, and also match this to your billing sheet. So that way, each week when you're tracking the units you're billing, it's a lot easier for you to go back and reference your billing sheet to match up to your insurance tracker. So if you kind of keep those both uniform, it'll make your life a lot easier. So John Smith, let's pretend that he has AmeriGroup. And we know that AmeriGroup typically authorizes you to do TCM services for 3 months at a time. So let's pretend that we submitted an authorization for John Smith on 9/10/2017. In AmeriGroup, they allowed us to begin that authorization on 9/17/2017, and 3 months later it's going to expire. So that'd be 12/17/2017. And on that auth, they gave us 120 units. So what happens when you type that into the unit section, that column I, it automatically populates under column J, units available. The next thing here is you will see the weeks. So the most helpful thing that I found is to make these weeks based on your billing week. So right now on our calendar, our billing week, since they go Sunday to Saturday, our billing week is 9/17 to 9/23. So because this is our first week that we're theoretically making this, we're going to put 9/17 to 9/23 at the top. Now let's say I've been working with John Smith for a while and just kind of maintaining his needs, and this week I bill 20 units for him. So now this will populate, it'll automatically subtract however many units from that week that you entered. So 20 units, so 100 adds up correctly. Now let's pretend we fast forwarded to next week. So that billing week would be 9/24 to 9/30. So let's put that in week 2. Now let's pretend this week, John ended up having a lot of needs. So let's say we build 50 units on him this week. So as you can see, that number went down drastically. We've already used 70 units on that authorization, even though we just got this auth to start back on 9/17. So we're using up a lot of units pretty quickly, right? So again, we're going to pretend like we're fast forwarding through time, and we have the next billing week, which would be the first week of October, 10/1 to 10/7. So let's put that in for week 3. So let's say, again, John's pretty high needs. It's not as bad as the week before, but he's still got a lot of needs. Let's pretend that we just build 35 units for him. So what you'll see happen with the tracker is once you kind of get low on units, you'll see that kind of yellow as like a warning indicator for you that you might want to think about requesting units pretty soon. So I typically recommend that most case managers, when they get down to about that 10 to 20 unit range, that they go ahead and re-request an authorization. So what we want to do is go ahead and request that, as soon as we can. So let's say we go back and we get a new auth for John. Now keep in mind what happens with AmeriGroup is one of two things. Sometimes you can add units onto this current auth. So perhaps you could request maybe 60 additional units to last you through 12/17. If, for example, we extended this out over time, let's say we were already in December, and, let's pretend this was like the first week of December. I'm just making up random dates here. Let's say that was our billing week. So we're pretty close. If we were 12/1 to 12/8, we're pretty close to when the auth is going to expire. So what AmeriGroup would do then is they would want you to start a brand new authorization to start on 12/18 or later. So sometimes AmeriGroup, depending on, again, when you're requesting units, either you can get more on that current auth or you would have to wait until December or whenever that auth expires to ask for new dates to start. But let's go back and let's pretend that we're in this boat where John's running low on units. And let's say AmeriGroup sends you a new auth and they say, okay, you still have the auth from 9/17 through the 12/17. Oops, sorry. And we're giving you 50 extra units. So you better make it count. Because this is the same authorization, we can pull from both of these. So we pretty much have, at this point, we'd have 65 units. But let's say we fast forwarded through time. We're going to pretend that never happened. And now we ended our auth on 12/17. And now it's 12/18. And we have an auth that's going to go through the next 3 months. And because we knew it was a high needs case, we asked for another 120 units. So what we would want to do is realize that, let's say we did have 15 units left. Let's say for 2 months we didn't really have to use a lot of units, which is not realistic, but just for the sake of making sense of this, let's pretend that, we had these kind of flow together. What you have to realize then, if those were not used, those go away. So because you didn't use those units on the auth and it expired on the 17th, those units have been, kind of canceled out, in other words. So we have a brand new authorization, and all we have right now to work with is 120 units. Okay, so there's one example of how you would track your insurance. Now keep in mind, you wouldn't want to put any other numbers for these weeks going forward because you're not pulling from that authorization anymore. You'd want to go from this new authorization. So because of that reason, because every 3 months you're getting a lot of these changes, I recommend updating your tracker, just doing like a clean slate about once every month and a half. Just because I find that if people wait, even though this tracker does go for 12 weeks, I find that if people wait to just do it every 12 weeks, there's a lot of confusion and people attributing units to incorrect authorizations. So again, that's just one of my suggestions as far as updating it and making sure that you're not having any errors. So I'm going to clear this out to give you guys another example of something you want to be mindful of when you are requesting and monitoring your authorization. So let's pretend we've got another random person here. So we're going to call it Joe Schmo. And let's say he has Simpatico as a provider. And we turned an authorization in for him. Let's say we did it last week after Hurricane Irma. So we submitted an authorization for him on 9/13/2017. And Simpatico said, I will give you an authorization for 9/20 to 12/20/2017. So let's enter those dates. Oops. And they gave you 100 units. So if you didn't have any prior authorization for Joe Schmo, or that maybe this is your first time opening him, then it's fairly simple to keep track of the units, right? But let's pretend we've got a different scenario here. So again, we got that new authorization, but let's say you've been working with Joe for a while, and back then he had an authorization from 6/15/2017 to 9/15/2017. Oops, sorry, wrong date there. And let's say, for the sake of argument, you burn through all those units. Again, keep in mind, because that authorization expired and or you burn through all those units, we're not pulling from that off anymore. So that's just another way to illustrate how you might track those types of units. Another weird situation folks sometimes encounter is you may have an authorization that starts and ends, or authorizations that start and or end in the middle of the billing week. So for example, let's say we have an authorization for Joe up until September 19th. And then, we did our job, we planned ahead, and we had a new off start on 9/20. That's in the middle of our billing week that off started. So that can present some confusion when you're doing your insurance tracker. So for the sake of argument, let's say we had an off for Joe, just to illustrate this, from 6/19 to 9/19, 2017. That will alert you that has expired. So keep that in mind, that's kind of a red flag for you, literally, to know that that's gone. So let's just, illustrate here how you can, burn through those units fairly quickly. So again, they burn through them. But again, we planned ahead with Joe, and we knew that we needed a new off to start on the following day, 9/20 to 12/20/17. And let's say we'll pretend that this billing week is week 6, so it's 9/17 to 9/23. You want to be careful with entering Joe on your insurance tracker, because if you put in here, let's say for the whole week you billed 10 units on Joe, keep in mind that that's going to put you in the negative for him if you were to do that. But we know, because the middle of the week happened, this new off started here, we need to figure out, okay, what did I bill from 9/17 to 9/19 so that it would go here? Let's say I billed 3 units. Obviously, that situation is not good because that would give us dirty charges. But let's say we knew, okay, I cannot bill any more units on Joe because I have a new auth coming into place, and I already went through it on week 5. But I knew that on 9/20, I was going to have more units. So what you'd want to enter on your tracker is only what you did from 9/20 and forward. So let's say for the 20th, 21st, 22nd, you billed a total of 8 units. Make sure that all you're entering is 8 units. So again, this is where it can be a little tricky, and sometimes folks think that they either are going into dirty charges on their old auth, I forgot to put in those units, or they're thinking that if there were any remaining, that they'd be pulled from there. So this is all to say that you want to make sure that if you have an auth that starts in the middle of a billing week, you don't want to assume that all 8 units are being pulled from old authorizations, or all of them from a new authorization, because you have to kind of break it up based on what date you're actually looking at. So this is where, like I said, even though you want to track this on a weekly basis and kind of match this up to your billing sheet, sometimes you want to, if you know that those auths are starting or ending on the week that you're currently tracking, you're going to want to look at it a little bit more closely. Whereas, for example, if I have an auth that doesn't end until a few months from now, and I have a bunch of units left on it, I may not necessarily need to look at that as closely. Whereas with this one, it just started, so I need to pay attention to where I'm inputting those number of units. So again, this tracker is hopefully a simple way for you to track that every week. And of course, as always, you want to match up what you have to your UR report. I would suggest in these situations where you do have an auth ending in part of the week, maybe the first part of the week, and starting in the other part of the week, that of course you want to track this, but during the next week, once this has passed, you'll probably want to go ahead and, clear that information out, because again, it can be a source of confusion for you. Or again, I always recommend doing your insurance tracker probably once every month and a half, so you have a clean slate and you don't have any confusion about how to do it. What I've just illustrated for you here is sometimes people will just automatically click clear contents. And as you can see, what happens is I no longer have information here in these cells. So that is another issue that has come up where people are doing their tracker. They're putting in, billing week 1, I did 9 units for somebody, I did 10 units the next week. And as you can see, it's not subtracting. So sometimes people, they may not necessarily realize that they've mistakenly deleted that formula from that column J where it says units available. So that has resulted in folks having dirty charges. So just keep that in mind, that you always want to make sure that there's some kind of formula here. So what you can do, it's actually pretty simple. If you go to right-click copy from another cell where that formula is still intact, you can copy it. And you can right-click the cell you want that formula to go back into and scroll over to paste where it says that FX function there. Oops, sorry, my computer's freezing a little bit here. And as you can see, it's taken this because I didn't enter any unit, so it's showing as a negative. So let's say if I put this back in, it should show me an accurate number. So keep that in mind. That 0 is a sign that there is a formula there that we need to put back into place. So this was just a quick and dirty version of how to use the insurance tracker. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you found this video to be helpful, and I'll see you later.